When did they rebuild the bridge?
It burnt in '05, and we had thousands of people coming in, and they were a lot of them were in tears because they remembered Grandma and Grandpa going through the bridge, and maybe they were the first time they drove a car, you know. And they were donating money, and they started donating trees because they need lots of trees to rebuild it. And they were donating sawing and logging, and in a short time we realized we were going to get a brand new bridge, and it wasn't going to cost a dime in taxpayer money. There's nearly 300 trees that were donated to build that bridge.
Wow.
The logging, we had 2 logging companies went together and went and got those trees. They brought them here, and they would cut them and stack them over there in that field. The farmer over there donated that field to build the bridge in, and they stacked them, and they graded each stack as according to what they would be good for. And we had 3 sawmills come in, portable sawmills, and they sawed it all up according to the blueprints, which were done for free by an architect and an engineer.
Who was the original done by?
It was built by J.J. Daniels.
Daniels?
Daniels, yes. He built quite a few bridges around. This evolved over the years.
Yeah.
You know, America's a little different than Europe. You know, it wasn't 4,000 or 5,000 years old. The settlers would just move out and get a piece of land, and they would have a cow, maybe a couple of pigs, some chickens, and a garden. Well, it's hard to be a farmer because everybody else has cows, chicken, and a garden, so you can't really sell it to anybody.
Right.
But 2 guys come along and they built a mill. Well, the settlers become farmers because now they can get their stuff milled, and the miller would always keep a portion of that he could sell to people in town. And so everything started growing then around the mill. The mill burned. It was just a log building.
Was that what happened to the original one?
The original one was just a log building, and it burned, and all the local people got together in a frolic to throw up a new building. You know, the mill's gone. Ah!
Yeah, that's a pretty
So
big
they built a building. It wasn't much of a building, but it was equal to the task.
Right.
Later, a man tore that down and built a fine 2-story flouring mill. Now that mill lasted up until 1869, and then it burned. They moved 25 feet downstream, built this building in 1870. Now this is what's called a modern mill. And it's called a modern mill because it has labor-saving devices in it. The most important labor-saving device is a grain elevator. It's a continuous running leather belt. It's got little buckets on it. We take the product to the top and dump it out. Back to the top and dump it out. Now it also has augers in it, which makes things go across and dumps it out. Before that, wagons would pull in. They'd have to go upstairs and actually hoist the stuff upstairs and dump it down to the machines. Now this opened up as a grist mill, which is stone grinding. It wasn't here. This was the office. It was a stone above there, a stone above there. And then 10 years later, they put in the roller milling process. Now all mills were grist mills for thousands of years. Stone is the only thing they had hard enough to grind up the grain with. But roller milling was invented in the early 1800s, and it's 2 rollers like this, got grooves called furrows. One turned a little slower than the other, and that's how they ground the grain. It was a lot faster and more efficient, and that's why they were constantly improving. Now, this building was 1870. They put the roller milling process in here in 1880. Now, the roller milling process was back there. They were still grinding corn and feed and everything over here.
Yes, right there where he's.
And that was eventually replaced by hammer mills. And eventually then they came up with what they called a health department. But Ernest Weiss, the miller before me, was German. He had a really thick German accent. He was actually a miller in Germany, famous for his flowers, I was told. What he did was in 1938, they built a new building out back, and the feed mill moved out there, and they put in 2 brand new horizontal water wheels called turbines. The original turbines were up here. So he's making flour in here and feed out back. And that's the way it ran up until February of 1951. There was a dust explosion that blew the building off, destroyed the water power. So when he stopped making flour, the feed mill moved in here, and that's when he electrified the building. 1969, he closed the feed mill. And that's when he put this stone back in here, put it here, built this little stage, put this railing on here, and he would demonstrate and also make flour, cornmeal, pancake mix, cornbread mix, and fish batter.
Do you have any info about the other bridges?
I know, like Jeffrey's Ford, which also was burned by the same guy 3 years before. The Jeffries family owned the farm. And when people go across the creek, they called it fording the creek. And they would ford the creek on the Jeffries farm. So when they built the bridge, they called it Jeffries Ford. This was built by Ben Hill, and he came in right away. He was a supervisor for a large construction team, firm and company, and he had restored covered bridges with the company, you know. But he had just retired, and he was a covered bridge nut. He was writing a book about covered bridges and everything. And he asked me, because when they burnt, the ends burnt and it fell in the creek. Well, it was, a lot of it was still, the siding was gone, but I went out there with him and I held the dummy end of the tape, and he measured the height, the thickness, the distance apart, the radius, everything.
Yeah.
He gave his drawings to the engineer and the architect, and they were able to do the blueprints. So that bridge is very close to the original bridge. And now he built this to explain how it works. Now this is a king post truss. The bridge will stand with that. This is the Burr Arch, and the bridge will stand with that. But the problem is, if you got a king post truss, and say a car runs into that post and breaks it, the whole thing can fall.
Whole thing.
Or if this rotted out, it could fall. So this way it's double trussed.
Right.
The king post truss will hold it, but this of course spreads the weight out.
Yeah, connects
like
them
this.
all and spreads the
And all the bridges, I believe, except one in this county, it's just a short bridge. I guess it really didn't need the arch.
That's really excellent.
Thank you for your intel.
Yeah.
Now, of course, this is a single span. That out there's a double span.
Yeah.
Well, there's one span and there's two spans, and then there's a pillar in the middle, and it sits on that. So you got. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's too bad it's sunk in the middle. Oh, the bridge sunk in the middle." And I said, "It did not sink. Yeah, look at it. It goes like this." Well, they build the bridges with a slight arch to it. That makes them stronger than being flat.
Right. Yeah.
And so it goes to the center and then goes on. It didn't sink in the middle. It's actually designed that way. It took 17 months from when it burnt to we cut the ribbon on the new bridge.
That's
unbelievable.
That's impressive.
Some of the nicest, most generous people I've ever met live here in Parke County. Of course, we had other counties too donated.
Yeah.
And the state, they were going to, and I think it was Greene County, they were going to clear out some of the bigger trees, and they donated all those trees. And we had two sawmills go down there and cut those trees and bring them here.
Thank you, sir.